Is Pakistan a failed state? Is Pakistan a rogue state? Or is Pakistan a garrison state? All these questions are raised on the international media whenever Pakistan is discussed. Anatol Levin has tried to answer these questions and bust the myths revolving around Pakistan in his book, Pakistan, a Hard Country. He has done extensive surveys, and by using hundreds of interviews with different people from different walks of life, ranging from soldiers to rickshaw drivers, he has tried to answer many questions regarding Pakistan. This is Globe Z, and today we bring you the chapter-wise summary of the book, Pakistan, a Hard Country. Before we start, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. The book is divided into 4 parts and 12 chapters. We will go through them one by one. Part 1. The land, the people, and the history. In this part, the author describes the various areas of Pakistan, its land, its demographics, and the people, and furthermore, he dwells into the history of Pakistan. Chapter 1. Understanding Pakistan. In this chapter, Levin introduces us with general and demographic aspects of Pakistan. He highlights the fertility of the Punjab soil and the mineral and natural wealth which lies under the soil of Balochistan and Sindh, which can be utilized for the benefit of the country's future development. He laments that it is an irony of fate that the country, which has abundance of natural resources and the capability to help others, runs to international agencies like the World Bank and the IMF with a begging ball in its hand. Chapter 2. The Struggle of the Muslims of South Asia. In this chapter, the author gives details about the Muslims of the subcontinent and their struggle for independence. He admires the vanguard of freedom led by Mr. Muhammad Ali Jinnah and highlights the supreme sacrifices rendered by Indian Muslims in pursuit of independence. As Pakistan was born in a crucible of fire, the author opines that it has left scars on Pakistan's memory. Resultantly, Pakistan values its security above all. Part 2. Structures. This part dwells upon the subjects of justice, religion, the military, and politics. Levin makes it clear that a surface analysis of Pakistani politics is not enough to understand how the political system of this country actually functions. He describes the kinship patronage system which is deeply embedded in the Pakistani society and how this system makes it difficult for the political class to run the political system. In such a system, decisions are made keeping the ethnic ties in mind, be it the political class, the red and blue bureaucracy, or the judiciary. Chapter 3. Justice. This chapter deals with the justice system in Pakistan. The author mentions the difficulties and the humiliation faced by the poor masses at district and lower levels. Corruption is a noteworthy factor in this context. Higher judiciary too does not have an immaculate history. Abrogation of the constitution by the military and subsequent amendments in it have always been given a legal coverage by the Supreme Court. Of late, there is a positive turn in its performance. However, the political elite and the wealthy try to exploit weaknesses of the judiciary to their advantage. There are many examples ranging from Shahzeb murder case to the ransacking of the Supreme Court by PMLN activists in 1990. These examples show a shameful conduct of Pakistan's judiciary. Chapter 4. Religion. This chapter dilates upon the importance of religion in the life of Pakistanis and busts the myth that Pakistanis are extremists. The author opines that Pakistanis exhibit strong adherence to Islam. However, this does not mean that all Pakistanis are extremists. For example, Pakistanis gave unflinching and strong support to Mr. Jinnah, who was a British-educated, enlightened barrister. Mr. Bhutto was another popular leader whose academic credentials were similar to the former. During elections too, the religious parties never fared well. Thus, the fanatic Taliban-type elements are very limited in numbers and do not enjoy mass support in the public. Chapter 5. Military. This chapter pertains to the military that Levin considers as a big family. He appreciates the professional competence, discipline, patriotism, and internal cohesion of the institution. He clearly considers Pakistan Army different from Middle Eastern and African armed forces where coups were staged by groups of junior officers. He rightly describes the mental and psychological superiority of young officers who, by their training, discipline, organization, and missionary zeal, have an edge over their civilian counterparts. At the same time, however, Army's involvement in civilian matters is not agreed in all circumstances, but still, the Army remains an important player in Pakistani politics because the Army is a major stakeholder in Pakistani politics. The author describes the cantonments of the Army as a paradise, as they are neat, clean, and signposted. This organization and discipline in the army has always given it legitimacy in the public, and that is the reason why it was easy for the army to take over in the past, as there was no resistance from the masses nor the civilian institutions. Chapter 6. Politics. This chapter dwells upon politics. Politics is generally considered the domain of the elite in Pakistan. Kinship is weighed heavily in this field. Political lot of the country is thought to be compromising, selfish, corrupt, and low in character. Family hegemony is the supreme mission of the party leaders. They relegate the country's interests to secondary and give preference to their own, which has been a major cause of Pakistan's underdevelopment. Pakistan has a dynastical democracy where the power always remains between two or more families. It is either the Bhuttos or the Sharifs. The common man does not have much to say within the corridors of power in Pakistan. This is the sole reason that people have always welcomed martial laws and always looked toward a third force. Because the political lot in Pakistan has left a vacuum, and that vacuum would always be filled by undemocratic forces. Part 3, which is chapter 7 to 10. This area contains a chapter devoted to each province. The strong points and weaknesses of the people, culture, economic potential, religious preferences, and political inclinations of the residents have been described in these chapters. The author carefully draws our attention to sensitivities of smaller provinces which are of critical importance for the national cohesion and integrity of Pakistan. Part 4. The Taliban. In this part, the author analyzes the Taliban factor in Pakistan and predicts that ultimately the offshoots of Taliban such as the TTP would be defeated in Pakistan. Chapter 11. The Pakistani Taliban. This chapter deals with the Pakistani Taliban, who the author states are limited in number and mostly belong to the areas of southern Punjab and KPK. He does not consider them to be enjoying the support of the masses. The people are gradually more convinced of their nefarious and menacing designs. Most of the Pakistanis are convinced that the TTP receives support from India and thus consider them as anti-state. Chapter 12. Defeating the Taliban. The author describes various characteristics of Taliban and recommends ways to defeat them. The author is of the view that Pakistan's latest approaches to handle the matter is proving to be fruitful. Pakistan adopted a multi-dimensional strategy to undo Taliban movement, which includes economic emancipation of the people, socio-political development, balanced and comprehensive foreign policy, and a strong military. These all are the key to success in this regard. This strategy is already paying dividends and is recommended to continue. For example, extension of military operations across Pakistan in Operation Raddul Fasad. Conclusions. Is Pakistan a failed state? Pakistan faces a plethora of problems which include tax collection, infrastructure projects, management of the local police, and basic governance. Nevertheless, Pakistan has managed to construct a well-trained, competent, and technologically advanced army, albeit one that consistently rejects civilian supremacy. Pakistan has also managed to build for itself ballistic missiles and a safe nuclear weapons program, both of which are centralized, capital-intensive endeavors. Consequently, Pakistan only approaches being a failed state on certain metrics of domestic governance. Its central government can consistently draw on the resources necessary to project a powerful international image. Thus, the narrative that Pakistan is a failed state is not true. Pakistan can be considered a failed state on some metrics of basic governance, but overall, Pakistan is not a failed state. Will the extremist elements like the Taliban take over Pakistan? Levin rejects the argument that Pakistan is likely to fall to the Taliban or to undergo an Islamic revolution similar to that of Iran's. The reason is that the secular institutions are too strong in Pakistan, which is true in the case of the army. More importantly, the network of identities that bind Pakistani society together are too strong for revolutionary forces to tear apart. While the Taliban has prospered in some parts of Pakistan and has periodically won certain forms of official sanction, it has also discovered hard limits on its appeal, not to mention the tolerance of the Pakistani security institutions. The Pakistani establishment have been happy to make limited use of the Taliban and Taliban allies to conduct proxy wars in Afghanistan in the past, but with changing regional geopolitics, Pakistani institutions have moved quickly to crush any serious threats to the Pakistani state. Climate change. Is it a threat to Pakistan? Levin repeatedly returns to concerns about climate change. He argues that climate change could destabilize Pakistan. According to the author, next to climate change, he only sees a US or Indian ground invasion as events that could bring about revolutionary change in Pakistan or destabilize the society and state. Why is there an imbalance in civil-military relations? For starters, the Pakistan Army was built on a British model perfected during the ROUGE. The Pakistani Army is a strong institution capable of managing itself in a more or less meritocratic fashion. It is nearly the only institution in the country that operates on such a Weberian logic. Thus, the military tends to hold a great degree of legitimacy and tends to have strong attitudes about the nature and conduct of the civilian Pakistani state. At the same time, the civilian state remains remarkably corrupt and incapable of reforming either itself or the life of the common masses. Consequently, the military often had both an interest in political intervention and the social capital to undertake such interventions. However, with the rise of an independent media and a vibrant civil society, democracy seems to be the only way to power in Pakistan now. The civilian institutions have to build their capacity and gain the trust of the masses in order to gain a balance in the country's imbalanced civil-military relations.